name is Mark Payton. I live here in Melrose, 62 Dell Avenue. And let's see, I grew up in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. On a farm. We raised livestock, tobacco, and hay mostly. And then, I don't know if you need that information. No? Doesn't look like it? All right. But I went in the Navy in 1980 and went to boot camp at Great Lakes, Illinois, right October 6th, and it was just starting to get cold there. But for some reason that year they had this vicious wind coming off of Lake Michigan that basically gave everybody frostbite internally. Very cold to our bones. So I went to boot camp. At that time, boot camp was 11 weeks. Now I guess it's 9 weeks when you go into the Navy. So from, was there till the 1st of December and a couple first weeks in December. And from there, I went on leave, went home for a week, and came back and went to what the Navy calls BEE, which was Basic Electronics Electricity. And they wanted me to become a weaponeer. So, and that's basically what I had chosen, to work with weapons and missiles and torpedoes, and basically to be the technician, because that was my job, was to be the tech for weapons. So BEE was a self-paced course. You go to class, you would put in at least 10-hour days in class, and once you finished all the mods, you'd graduate. So it was 36 mods, and I was trying to get done at least 2 to 3 mods a day from basic electronics electricity. So when I left there, when I graduated from that, I went on to Orlando, Florida. At that time, that's where the Naval Special Weapons School was, in Orlando, Florida. They called it Service School Command, SSC, and they taught you the basics for special weapons, how to work on a warhead, how to work on the electronics adaptation kit, things like that, and how to work it safely. From there, I got my orders to report to the USS McKee AS-41, which was a submarine tender. And that was the direction that was given to me by the Navy, was to work on weapons that went on submarines. So I reported to Point Loma, San Diego, which was the vessel's home port. From when I got there, the vessel, there was a little confusion because the vessel had not reported to its home port because it had not been commissioned. There was delays in the vessel making of the vessel, and it was being built at Lockheed up in Seattle, Washington. So I had to catch a flight and head up to Seattle, Washington. When I got to Seattle, I reported aboard, and a month later she was commissioned, and everybody aboard the vessel became a plank owner. A plank owner is a naval term that says you are the first crew of this ship, of this vessel. So from then we went down, we traveled to San Francisco, loaded our tender with the needed supplies and weapons, reported at our home port, and then a month later we did what the Navy calls a Westpac. And that is that we do a cruise to support submarines in the fleet that was in the Pacific Ocean. So I went from Point Loma, San Diego, California, to Honolulu, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. We did a qualification, what they call a part of a RIM pack today. Back then it was called basically being commissioned into the fleet. From there, we went from there to Subic Bay in the Philippines. In the Philippines, we were basically supplying, supporting, and going around relieving other vessels so they could be outfitted and requalify. From Subic Bay, we went to Singapore, went to Thailand, Diego Garcia to Japan, and then after about 8 months to 6 months within the Westpac into the Pacific, we did a Liberty cruise in Brisbane, Australia, and from then we started heading back to the home port. When we got to Pearl Harbor in Honolulu, Hawaii, I was sent and received orders to go to what they call a sea school, which was to become a special weapons expert. And at that time, they were introducing the Tomahawk missile to the fleet. So that was going to be my designation, was to be a technician for the Tomahawk missile. So I went from there to back to Orlando, Florida, went through a 6-week school, and at the end of that 6-week school, the Navy said, for the needs of the Navy, we want all special weapons people to be qualified as an EOD assist, explosive ordnance disposalman, because at the time the Navy had a need for special weapons people to assist EODs that were in the field that mostly were not qualified in special weapons. So that was based upon the needs of the Navy. So from there I went to Panama City, Florida, started getting qualified as a diver, went to Fort McClellan, Alabama, got to jump out of perfectly good planes. The shoot school, which was more of an intro, did 3 jumps, and from there went back down to Panama City to become basically weapons salvage EOD assist. More of like a tool handler for a higher graded technician. Then the Navy wanted you to develop yourself into an EOD through their school. In the middle of that, we had the Grenada conflict. I had to assist with that and went back to school, and then for the needs of the Navy, they had a issue aboard a submarine tender, which was stationed home port in New London, Connecticut, USS Fulton AS-11. And at that time, she was in the shipyard being outfitted right over here in Quincy, Mass, at the Four River Shipyard. During that time period, I became a third class petty officer. So I went from a seaman recruit to a seaman apprentice to a seaman to basically a third class petty officer, which made me a GMT, which is, then they called them weapons techs, WTs. So I ended up being a WT3, third class petty officer. During this time period, aboard the Fulton is when I met a girl from Watertown, Massachusetts, Carolyn Kelly, and we became very good friends. And at that time, my vessel, after it was refitted and requalified, we went down to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, got qualified, and then we did a med cruise. Now, med cruising is in the Mediterranean Sea, and I cruised all over the Med. We went across the Atlantic Ocean to Barcelona, Spain. From Barcelona, Spain, we went to La Maddalena, which is an island, a submarine base that we share with NATO and also mostly with the Italians. There in Sicily, not Sicily, Sardinia. Sigonella, Sicily is our air base that we have. I always got the two confused. I was in and out of both of them a lot at that time. From there, we went to Alexandria, Egypt. We went to goodness gracious, in Israel. We went to Israel, Haifa, Israel, spent some time there, and back to La Maddalena, and then we were supposed to, after about 6 months, we were supposed to went back to the States. Again, the needs for the Navy and the needs for the world, we were requested to assist in a NATO drill, which was in Bergen, Norway. So from Sardinia, we did a Liberty stop in Palma, Mallorca, which is a small resort island off of in between Sicily and Italy. And then from there, we went up to Bergen, Norway, and we all froze our heinies off because it was January. And from there, we went to Holy Loch, Scotland, and we assisted. We used to have a submarine base in Holy Loch, Scotland. We relieved, at that time, the Holland, the USS Holland. And when when we were in La Maddalena, we relieved the USS Orion. So after we completed our needed missions there in Holy Loch, we went back to New London, Connecticut, and there at State Pier, and I finished my active service from there to in New London, Connecticut, and transitioned over into the Navy Reserves. My first Naval Reserve ship was the USS John F. Kennedy, CV-67. From there, I was aboard the Kennedy from end of '86 till 1993. I served a lot, did a lot of missions with the Kennedy. A lot of them I cannot disclose. And then Desert Shield, Desert Storm happened, and I received orders to go to the Arab Sea to support the mission that we had for Desert Shield and then for Desert Storm. During that time, I was asked to be a EOD assist aboard a minesweeper, USS Chief, MSO, my goodness, 11. And I only did that for about a month, and then I was injured and had to go to USS Comfort, naval hospital ship. And then the conflict was over, and I transitioned back into reserve from active reserve to inactive reserve. I spent most of my reserve time in South Weymouth, right here in Mass. And then in '93, I transitioned away from the Kennedy. The Navy requested, at that time I had made, well before that, in '89 I'd made first class, and then in '95 I was informed that I had made Chief Petty Officer. Chief Petty Officer is a big thing in the Navy. You wear the khakis, you get an anchor right here. And from then on, I went from the USS, well, I'm sorry, got caught up on the ships. From there, I went on to Naval Air Station Brunswick, where I transitioned over into the Seabees, because for the needs of the Navy, they were downgrading all the special weapons, but yet I had this, my secondary duty was required for me to stay ready for special weapon needs based upon the needs of DOD. So a lot of my work from then on after making chief was based upon Northeast Command 1, which was out of Newport, Rhode Island, and I supported all of New England and the Northeast. From Brunswick in '98, I transitioned back down to Groton, Connecticut, and assisted Northeast Command down there with Submarine Group 2. And they basically wanted me to verify clearances, especially for people that worked with weaponry. So I did that, and a lot of other duties until I retired in 2003. Transitioned a lot from getting active orders, did some training for EODs down in Little Creek, Virginia, and they mostly wanted me to prep people with today's conflict that's going on from Iraq to Afghanistan, qualifying EODs with IED capabilities. And we basically qualified, my job was to transition EODs from the basic A school, C school into an IED type of explosive device to basically put themselves into the shoe of the terrorist. In other words, I'd tell these guys, okay, if you were a terrorist, how would you plan an IED? And that's how you would approach to deactivate an explosive. So I retired 2003. Right now I work for Raytheon. I work for Power Systems right now, and directly I have a contract with Missile Defense aboard the SBX-1, which is right here, which is a radar vessel. This is the most powerful radar in the world. We can track, assimilate, and break down whatever we need of anything that is launched in the Pacific. And we give it up as a target, and Missile Defense launches whatever they want at it to take it out, you know, to keep everyone safe. Let's see. This is my certificate of retirement from the U.S. Navy. This is my certificate. It's a little stuck here. Sorry, gentlemen. Certificate of appreciation from the President of the United States for my retirement and service. These are the books, what we call cruise books that were given in the Navy. The Navy is a completely different type of armed forces. Yes? This here is a cruise book. This was, they call this the keel. When you read in 1980, when I completed my basic training at boot camp, they give you this book in appreciation, and it's basically, there's more stuff in here than I thought. Basically outlines what you did in boot camp. This is my first year as a plank owner. This is the first ship that I was aboard, the USS McKee, AS-41. And it basically outlines what the ship was, what it looked like. And as you can see, we have men in their salt and pepper uniform, which isn't allowed anymore, which was a good uniform. And this was in '81. So if you want to look at this, that's our CO, commanding officer in a blueberry pie competition. But as you can see, that's this was submarine group 5, the Rear Admiral Burkhart, and this is my captain at the time, Captain Gorham, the XO waterman, who was born and raised in Hingham, Mass, and Chief, Command Master Chief, and the rest of the crew. This here is the USS Fulton, which is stationed down in New London, Connecticut, off State Pier. And this was the cruise book when we did the cruise in the Med. Again, you got your CO, commanding officer, Montgomery, and Wesley. And he was a New England gentleman also. I forget exactly where I want to say he was from Scituate. And the crew and all the places we visited. When I was in '84, when I was in La Maddalena in Sardinia, we got to get a 96-hour Liberty to go on Easter, and we went to the Vatican there at St. Peter's Cathedral, and it was a great time. This here is what enlisted sailors wear. It's called the Dixie Cup. And basically this is your hat that you wear whenever you're aboard shore, but out at sea, unless you're called to wear dress uniform, you usually wear a ball cap for that vessel. A lot of the submarines that I worked on was basically for technical work. I was never a part of a crew, just assistance and support for submarines. A lot of people ask me, oh, you were on subs? And I was like, no, just basically to support. And let's see. Son Andrew wanted me to bring my medals, but I couldn't find a lot of them. This coin here is a commission coin for the SBX-1. You guys want to look at that? I'll take it out of its package. There you go. It's, a lot of people are interested in my JFK coins. That's the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy. Right now we're setting up a project to bring the John F. Kennedy to Newport, Rhode Island. And it will be a museum and a hotel. So people will be able to go aboard the JFK as a hotel, or also to, we have museums. We're going to have, we got 2 F-14 Tomcats that we'll be getting, and one of them we're going to be doing a set and run, and it'll be a simulated Tomcat. So you'll be able to set in the Tomcat and do a simulation of flight. This here is a coin that was given to me by a very good friend. He's aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, and I think everybody knows that the movie Lincoln's coming out tonight. Yeah, which is one of my heroes. There you go, JFK. This is my Chief Petty Officer's coin that was given to me. The motto for the Navy's honor, courage, and commitment, and they live on that, and they put it on every coin. Another Chief's coin that was given to me by a very good friend. You guys probably a little tired. This is my retirement coin. That was, is this my? Oh, this is my, yes, my retirement coin. It's another coin that they had for the SBX-1 radar vessel. Pretty cool. And what's one of this? Oh, this is the Pearl Harbor coin. I have a lot of friends that throughout the Navy. One of my best friends, and each person that you become close with in the Navy, you'd call him a shipmate. Well, my primary shipmate and we mentored one another was Chuck Clanahan. He retired as a commander, and he was on the USS Missouri during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and he served in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was went from a weapons, he was like myself, but instead of taking the tour of Seabees like I did, he did Master at Arms, which is the security forces for the Navy. They call them MAAs. Let's see. This is a naval commendation that was given to me in after the training I did down in Little Creek, Virginia, while I was a reservist, and hardly any reservists ever get that. And at that time, the commanding officer for EOD school was very appreciative in the training I did, and now they have a set line set up, they call it, for once they go to EOD A and C school, that they have to go through my IED training. And any questions?
What is your date of birth?
My date of birth? I was born in 1963. August 19, 1963. Same as Bill Clinton, Bubba. Okay? Any other questions, gentlemen?
Is Veterans Day your favorite holiday?
Yeah, I appreciate Veterans Day. Memorial Day, I have a lot of. I just recently found out that I lost a EOD trainee that I trained over in Afghanistan. That went to Afghanistan. That's been my first fatality, and he was a very eager type of guy, but had good rhythm. Whenever I train people, especially with weaponry that is foreign, I try to get them to first create a good rhythm. I tell them, I don't want you to get in a hurry, but I don't want you to be a slow poke. And when I'd introduce that, I'd say, I don't want you to be Speedy Gonzalez, or I don't want you to be slow poke Gonzalez. I want you to have a rhythm. And he had a very good rhythm, but they set a booby on his IED that he was trying to decommission. And it was right to his right side, and it ended his life. So. Any other questions? No? So what are you guys looking to do for your adventures, as I call them? When you get done with your high school, you going to college? Yeah? Yeah? Any colleges in mind, what occupation you'd like to look at? A math?
Yeah.
Oh, very good, very good. Yeah. Wouldn't you, sir?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah.
Yeah, keep an open mind. That's why I tell people, a lot of people ask me, well, what should I do? I want to go in the Navy, what should I do? And I tell them, when I went in, we had what they called being a striker. In other words, you could choose, you went in and you worked for the deck department, but you got to see what everybody was doing. And when you're a striker, they just make you basically a seaman, a recruit to seaman apprentice to seaman, and you have no designation as far as an occupation. So you get to experience. I had a friend of mine who went, and he figured, well, he wanted, after being with deck crew, he figured, well, he wanted to be a machinist because he loved math. But at that time, machinist wasn't done by computers. It was all by hand. It was a very crafty, and he felt like he was just getting too much into it, and he couldn't create himself a good rhythm. So he went away from a machinist mate, and he figured, well, I want to be an engineman down in the engine room. And a lot of hard, hot work down there, and you end up living in your t-shirt and your boots because it's so, warm. The engines are hot, and he did that for about 3 months, and then he decided he wanted to try medical, became a corpsman. And right now he's a Master Chief of the training facility for corpsmen in San Diego. So I think he got to see every occupation and did everything. And believe it or not, as a corpsman now, he's also a engine head, as he calls himself, and he works on old cars too. So, your adventures can be everything you want to put out for. And you, sir, what are you wanting to look to do? Go to college? Yeah. Now, are you guys, what are you, sophomores? Freshmen? All freshmen, all right. Okay.
Did you go to college?
Did I go to college? Well, I went, when I attempted to go to college, I went to Murray State University. I played football. And my father passed away, so I had a hard time starting and completing my college career. So that's why I went in the Navy. I had to get a break from all the negatives, as I call them, in my life and get some positives. Yeah, I went to Murray State, and then I ended up, the Navy has what they call the Navy College Program. And I applied that when I was active, and at that time they called it PACE courses. And a professor would come aboard the ship, and the first PACE course I did was a Westpac, and I did English 101 and basic, things for intro to college, freshman college. And I got completed 2 courses then. And then between the training and Navy life, you try to work in as many schools, but mostly the Navy had professors aboard the vessels that would go out with us, and they would give us on our off time, if you wanted, you could do classes. And I did that in the Westpac, and I did it in the Med, and then in the middle of that, they came out with the Navy College Program, and they accredited me for all the classes I did and everything, and I applied it to Thomas Edison State College down in Trenton, New Jersey, and got my associates for electrical electronics, they call it, associate's degree. And basically all my experience and everything is, and my college degree has given me a job at many places. I used to work in civilian life while doing Naval Reserve. I worked for Belmont Municipal Light Department, Commonwealth Electric there in Cambridge, and then I worked for Boston Edison for a while, N-Star for a while. During this whole time I was part of the IEBW 104 as a electrical worker, lineman, and I worked on a lot of substations, which was my SME, as they call it, subject matter expert. And that's what I do now, is electrical and power. Went from there, I worked on the Big Dig for almost a little over 3 years for Bechtel. Did all the substations for them, mostly substations, interim-wise and permanent-wise. And let's see, from there, I worked again for a lot of utilities, National Grid, and went from National Grid to Raytheon. And I've been with Raytheon since 2005.
What made you want to go into the Navy?
Well, basically in 1980, we had very hard economic times, just like we do now. And like I said, my father was very sick my high school career, and basically it was the only way. It was either I was trying to get a scholarship in football, or basically I had to go in the Navy to support and take care of myself and my family, and went from there to that's why I joined the Navy. Plus I was always wanting to travel, and I did that. You know, as I given you my tour of my Navy life, I did a lot of travel, saw the world, places where people could only imagine. But basically, yeah, you know, I had to, very good question, go in the Navy because, you know, money makes the world go around. And I needed it, just like you guys will when you get older. But it's also, you know, it's a service too. I wanted to serve my country and to help out to the best of my ability. Any other questions? Anything on the punch list? No?
Do you think the movies and video games of today actually depict the realities of war?
I think it's a 50-50 because I have a very close friend of mine who works with a lot of intel, counter intel, and also works with droids and things like that. He started off in that field, and a lot of it is with, you know, is electronics, you know, and I think that's, you know, it gives them a skill set. Whether or not they can, you know, if you can play a video game, you know, it's not the real thing, but it's more of an intro. And that's the way things are going right now, is everything's electronic. And you have to be a multitasker to survive nowadays in the workforce. You have to be able to, you know, more than to be in the educational field, for example. We were talking the other day with a friend of mine. He said, well, you know, I teach a class. I have to, you know, teach kids how to set skills, but yet I have to be my own IT person. I have to be my own system administrator because, you know, sometimes those people aren't available. And yet you still have to, you know, have the skills to be able to do the job you want to do. I think it's the same thing. Video games and things like that, it teaches you to multitask, I think. But it doesn't teach you the real substance in the field. That's why I like to be in the field. That's why I call myself a field engineer, because cubicle job's just not for me. Tried it, didn't work out. I figure in today's workforce, you got two skill sets, basically. You have a keyboard skill set and a tool skill set. And if you can do both of those, you'll go above and beyond your wildest dreams. Because somebody's got to fix those keyboards, you know? When you can fix your own, it's amazing. Any other questions?
I think that's it.
Think that's it?